To me, I already knew what I wanted to do as a kid. Like, I've been telling my parents, like, there was a tape that my great aunt has. I mean, saying, like, I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to go to a good college. I'm going to go to a good job. I knew what I wanted already. It's just me fulfilling that.
Being a first-generation college student is interesting. You gotta really work at it. You know, you don't have like your parents to fall back on in terms of like how college experience should be like, so you don't really have any beforehand knowledge.
My family never taught me about this. I'm first-generation college student. They've taught me about so many different life lessons about dedication and hard work, but in terms of what it takes to succeed in a college environment and what it takes to compete with others in a different culture as well, I'm paving the way.
One of my experience being a first-generation college, definitely at first it was a lot of burden, a lot of difficulty navigating through the resources and understanding what is the FAFSA like, what is financial aid like, or struggling to really understand the educational system because none of my family knows.
I feel one thing CWU could emphasize is just being sensitive to the fact that first-generation students usually, this is their first time doing this. So the fact that they don't have an example to refer back to whenever stuff gets rough is very important.
One of the things that I really struggle with is like I didn't have a mentor or somebody to talk to about college, really finding that resources. But eventually, I able to see a lot of, mentors, advisors in school that kind of resonate with my struggle, and they pick me up, help me, and redefine my motive in college. And I think from that resources, it kind of helped me build myself up, kind of destroying that socialized aspect of what college is supposed to be or how I'm supposed to act, and just really focusing on my identity and what I want and what I want to be. We expect first-generation students to come out of the cave and to seek those resources. And I think sometimes that's really difficult because I know for me, I'm a very shy individual, and growing up in the Philippines or in Asia, seeking help is perceived as a negative thing. So we need to think about like the cultural aspect of asking help.
I'm pretty sure CWU aims towards promoting equity, and I feel like just being sensitive to the fact that first-generation students don't have it cut out for them and they have to learn the ropes as they go could play a great part in just providing that extra helping hand when needed to not only first-generation students, but students overall.
One thing I think that universities in general can do to kind of help first-generation students, I've always thought that not everybody's for college, but college should be for everybody. So what that means is like college, like they have to make it more available for students who, might not have the money to like financially pay for it on their own, or maybe students who maybe like messed up like a little bit in high school, like they have the potential to get a degree, but because they made one or two mistakes, like they didn't get that opportunity.
My parents worked so hard to prepare me for my future. I feel like it would be a slap in the face if I didn't use my full potential. And so I'm really trying to use my full potential. I'm really trying to stay engaged wherever I can.
One of the expectations that my parents hold of me is huge. I think one of the things the burden that I carry is not only I'm a first-generation college, but I'm also a first-generation immigrant. And so all of my hopes and dreams of my mom, I carry, and all of my family. So it kind of hurts a lot because sometimes I don't meet their expectation because they wanted me to be a nurse, a businessman, make a lot of money. But my heart tells me that I should be in a nonprofit or helping others or community service. And having your family not in your back or not fully supporting your dream, it hurts. At the same time, you kind of understand that they've struggled through a lot through poverty, and they saw me as that light to change their future. And not being able to accomplish that, that's something that I carry every day.
So I only live with my mom. I don't have a relationship with my dad. So with my mom, she always wanted me to go to college, and it was always expected of me to go to college. Like it wasn't like, oh, you should go to college. It was, you're going to college, you don't have that choice. Me being here is like, she's starting to give me like more of like the real world adult, type expectations.
Since my family majority women, I didn't really have that many men in the household. I was raised by my mom and my aunt who passed away. So it just basically makes sure like I don't need a woman to take care of me all the time, and I can take care of myself.
I wasn't really necessarily raised the traditional way you would raise a boy. I was raised with all women, so I kind of like took on a lot of the feminine aspects as well.
I'm the like oldest male after my dad, so you know, a lot of the responsibility lands on me if something was to happen to him. You know, in our culture, it's like they tend to look at the oldest male for like kind of guidance.
When I think of a man, some of the characteristic that pops into my head is competitive, strong, emotionally strong, emotionless, aggressive, somebody on top of a rock, right? Those toxic characteristics of men really affects how we perceive ourselves as men, and me personally, and people like me out there. And I think it's just not a very healthy way of thinking going about nowadays. I think we need to think more of how can we, instead of being competitive or instead of stepping other people down to be the achiever, how can you actually help each other and collaborate, and kind of changing that perspective and stereotype we have of men, and actually redefining it to be more effective and be more, you know, a positive way, so we're not pressured to do things that, you know, just because we're men, that's what we have to do, right?
I think that like there's like a stigma to being a male, especially me being like a black male. I definitely think there's like a stigma that comes with that. I think that, you know, we're seen as like very aggressive and like very masculine, and to a lot of people like a very intimidating, like scary type figure. And I think because of where I'm from, I think to an extent like I understand why people feel that way, but I also think it's wrong. I understand it because like I grew up in Tacoma. I had a lot of friends that were in gangs and stuff like that. I grew up with a lot of people who, you know, were into like a lot of like the violence and stuff that comes along with all that, and a lot of them happen to be, you know, black males. And so like I understand that, you know. An example, my first friend that I ever lost, I was in the 4th grade. He was a little bit older than me, but he was shot, and he was shot by an African-American male. And like that was very impactful for me, and very impactful for a lot of like my friends, like whether they knew him or not, just because like it happened at our elementary school. So like we came into school the next day, and like there's like a crime scene, and there's all these cops, and it's like 30 feet away from our playground. And so like that was super impactful for like a lot of my friends, and like that kind of started to shape the way we kind of looked at people, because when you're young, like you're super impressionable. And so like to have that kind of impression, to have that kind of like stigma kind of implanted to you at such a young age, like that's huge. And so I think that has a lot to do with, you know, at least like where I'm from, like a lot, that happens a lot, like things like that happen a lot. So I think that has a lot to do with that kind of stigma.
I think, you know, being a man isn't necessary. It's not about like, you know, tools and trucks and all this other stuff. I think masculinity is kind of like an arbitrary thing. I think it's just really important to like be yourself and not subscribe to the traditional stereotypes and like values that people find masculine. And that like it took me like quite a while to learn to just kind of like not worry about if so-and-so thinks you're masculine, or if so-and-so is gonna think of you as more feminine. It's not really a matter of that. It's about if you feel comfortable.
Being a man is just so more than just what we see on TV or just what we think. First of all, like I might presume this way, but like if you actually get to know me, I'm actually nice. I'm aware of how people feel. I'm more caring than what you think I am.
For my definition of a guy, it would be someone who's caring and someone who's nice and kind to everyone, but it's also someone who can express their emotion as well. It's not someone who's just like stone-faced all the time.
I myself, like, you know, as a male, I feel like I have to be very professional and serious, you know, try to carry myself at the best, you know, level that I can possibly carry myself at, you know, having a lot of integrity, you know, just protective.
what do you think a good man is? And I feel like a good man is someone who's kind, someone who's humble, and someone who's able to like take the extra step to help anybody.
I believe that there are the set of views on men that need to be changed. One, for sure, is that men can't show emotions. That should be a total lie. Men should be able to show all the emotions that they need to. They could be able to cry without thinking that they're not men for it. They should be able to show affection to people. They should be not having to refer to another minority groups or whoever as a negative for themselves.
Society expects guys to just ball up their feelings, you know, and like eventually it's going to pop. And for like some people, that's what they do. That's their like defense mechanism, but it's not healthy. You're like, oh, this person's been like bent up for like a week, you know, and they just didn't tell anyone because they don't know how to, and it's just, that's how they were raised. Like maybe that's what they were taught, and I don't feel that's right. I feel like that's just creating more problems than it's solving, you know? Like guys should be able to talk about their feelings and not be made fun of for it.
There shouldn't be the hypermasculine. There shouldn't be basically the whole idea that I need to have sex with women to be a man. As a man, we shouldn't try to use our power to try to make other people do what we want. I believe as a man, we should actually step up for people who can't speak up because of my privilege.
Well, throughout my life, I've most definitely faced a lot of adversity and a lot of microaggressions and things like that. And in the past, I may have reacted negatively due to the fact that I wasn't familiar with the idea of facing adversity and people judging me just based off of how I look and them creating this perspective of me without actually knowing me. That's very prevalent. And when I was younger, that I would always react negatively just because it's, you never want to hear a microaggression, or you never want to hear someone trying to assume who you are. But facing adversity is very important because I feel like sometimes you kind of have to suck it up and continue to move forward, because there's always going to be people like that in this world.
The area that I'm from is not a bad area at all. It's primarily white demographic, but with a couple of pockets of color. Now, those pockets of color, as I described, had some pretty defined cultural expectations. I encountered racism like very strongly in that school district. I had teachers tell me when they saw that I'm starting to get around and starting to laugh and starting to play with other children, I finally figured out the gangsters don't live around here, huh, Sam? I'm in fifth grade, and I took my puffy jacket off because I'm playing Foursquare, threw it off the side. She didn't see that I wore it that day. She thought I didn't wear my puffy jacket, and looks me in the eyes and finally figured out gangsters don't live around here, huh?
Growing up as a kid, you know, your parents try to shield you from these kinds of things, and that's good because, you know, growing up you should have a childhood that's like nice. But when you get older, the world is kind of scary, and it's not that you should be afraid of it, it's that you should, you know, you should acknowledge it and you should be careful of that.
Of course, there's been teachers who've treated me differently based on my ethnicity, both positively and negatively. So for the negative side, I've just learned that, to kill them with kindness. Every class that I go to, I sit in the front. I'm taking notes. I show up to class prepared to learn. And I think for the most part, that plays a great part in overall success because, there's going to be people, like I said, who treat you different everywhere you go. When people say certain things to me that are aimed to be derogatory, I have to put myself in a position where it's like, either I can react negatively and I can throw everything I've ever worked for away based off of someone saying something off impulse, or I can brush it off, understand that I am higher than what they perceive me to be, and I have life goals. Just understanding that not everyone may understand where I come from, that's okay. But as long as I'm provided equity amongst the classroom, that's all that matters to me.
Coming from a place where you've been belittled, being called hurtful names, even I sit here and encourage others, I still don't see the value in myself. And I think it's really sad because I work so hard to build myself up. And every day, it's just I'm reminded of like really hurtful things that I've experienced in the past. If I want to give advice to myself, I think just value yourself, love yourself more.
I have good experiences here, and I also got bad, but it's always good to look back on the bad things, but also remember that there are good things that's happened here. You are still who you are. You are still strong. You are still going further with your life.
I think right now I depend on others to validate myself, and I think that's not fair because I'm gonna go in a world where I might not have that support. So I just need to start saying, yeah, I've done a good job, and you know, I deserve to exist. I deserve to have all these opportunities and awards.
Don't be afraid to be yourself. Be comfortable with who you were and who you are. Don't feel like you need to fit the mold of what you see other black men do. You don't have to be a thug. You don't have to fit what society thinks of you as. You're not an animal. You're not violent. You're human. And just do the best that you can, and don't let anybody else tell you what to do.
For those first generation, for those first immigrant, I understand your pain. I understand the burden that you carry. Don't let it kind of lose your way or lose yourself.
As my aunt who passed away said, just finish where I start. So that's what I'm doing. I'm finishing where I started.